Welcome to today's webinar, Cybersecurity, the New Requirement for Quality, sponsored by SGS. I'm Dr. Sharm, Editor-in-Chief for Quality Digest, and I'll be your host today for the webinar. An effective quality management system is the heart of any successful business, and it ensures a consistent process for creating a high-quality product or service. Lately, there is another element that must be considered in the quality process, and that's cybersecurity. It's no longer relegated to the IT department. Cybersecurity is everyone's concern. With the advent of Industry 4.0, the exponential growth of the industrial Internet of Things, and just overall connectivity of business functions, cyber attacks have become a nearly daily occurrence. I mean, you hear something in the news probably at least every week. Understanding the roles information security and cybersecurity play in the quality and consistency of your company's products or services is key to a resilient organization that is well grounded against cyber attacks. So in this webinar, we're going to learn the role information security plays in quality, how the use of a strong information security governance structure provides process protection, and how management system standards often overlap, creating opportunities for efficiencies and greater effectiveness. Before we get started, just a little housekeeping. A reminder that you can send us questions using the Q&A box. You can find the Q&A button down there towards the bottom of your screen. Just mouse over that, click that, open up the box, and send us your questions. A recording of this webinar will be available about one day after the webinar, about this time tomorrow. You'll get an email with that information from Quality Digest. And also, very important, if you said in your registration that you need a certificate of attendance, you will need to answer one of the polling questions presented during the webinar. Okay, today's presenter is Willie Fabricius, Global Head of Strategy and Business Development Information Security at SGS. For more than 25 years, Willie has held management positions with organizations in the private sector. His experience in the quality field goes back to the early 1990s, when he implemented an ISO 9002, remember that, QMS at a stamping facility in Germany, which went on to be certified in 12 months. He is the qualified lead auditor for a variety of standards, has worked for several global certification bodies, and delivered thousands of audits around the world. He has a master's in computer science, is a senior member of ASQ, and also sits on ISO committees SC 27 and SC 42, which are responsible for writing standards related to information security and AI. Okay, go ahead, Willie, it's all yours.
Dirk, thank you very, very much for this wonderful introduction. As already said, today I will talk about cybersecurity, the new requirement for quality. And the question I have is, what is 5.10.23? Is 5.10.23 the part number for a bearing? Or is it May 10, 23, or is it the 5th of October 2023? So just by looking at the collection of a couple of digits, we don't really know what it is. And that's the difference between information and data. The data is just the number 51023. The information comes from the context. So let's keep that in mind. And Dirk was already kind enough to introduce myself. So yes, more than 29 years ago, I implemented this ISO 9002 system in the stamping facility. And if somebody is interested in having a little bit more background of stuff I've done, please feel free to go to YouTube and scan these QR codes, where you will find some postings that were done in the past, talking about all kinds of webinars I've done. So a little brief introduction of SGS. SGS is a Swiss-based company. We are headquartered in Geneva, and we were founded in 1878 as a grain inspection authority. We literally were inspecting grain being transported from France to England making sure that the quality was up to the expectations of the buyers. And even still today, SGS is very, very prominent in the food safety industry. And we have globally about 98,000 people operating out of 2,650 offices and laboratories. And we are the world's largest test, inspection, and certification company. We are also a publicly listed company at the Swiss Stock Exchange in Zurich. And we bring a wealth of information across all our various disciplines we are operating in. The knowledge solution is one of the business units we are active, and we are providing certification, we are providing training, as well as customized audit solutions, and we are providing SGS Transparency One, which is a supply chain solution that helps organizations to better understand their suppliers. And last but not least, we also provide technical consulting within our knowledge solution business unit. Here we see a couple of examples of products or services we are providing within knowledge, and in particular within cyber solutions, or as we like to say, digital trust. Within digital trust, we are obviously very focused on ISO standards, whether this is ISO 27001 information security, or whether this is ISO 20000 IT service provisioning, or even WLA, the World Lottery Association certification, or GDPR certification, addressing the requirements and legal requirements stipulated in GDPR, and in particular fulfilling Article 42 and 43 of GDPR. But we also do pen testing, and we do supply chain audits. And I understand that many people have a certain belief what pen testing could be. And yes, there's obviously the physical pen testing, which we might do. But there's the logical pen testing, which we also do, the network pen testing. But then we also have business units that literally go onto the silicon level of chips and try to break those chips right on the hardware level, right on the chip level, using laser beams. And that actually brings us to the very first poll question. Dirk, want to go ahead, please?
Sure. I'm going to put up a little poll question here. And I have a question for you, Willie, just to kill some time here while people fill in that poll question. By the way, as I mentioned earlier, if you need a certificate of attendance, you do need to answer one of the polls that are coming up. So from your experience, what kind of growth have you seen in the interest in cybersecurity in companies? Has it been, has it been exponential? Has it been kind of a slow growth over the years? What kind of interest is there from companies, from your experience?
I think it's better to ask what is the fear factor we see. and with fear comes interest, right? So there is this first that thinking, we are too small, nobody is hacking us. And I think the truth is further from that than what they think. Because at the end of the day, hackers really don't care about the size of an organization or the perceived importance. Because hackers have different motives than what the good guys may think. And thus, there's obviously a lot of interest coming, and I believe it's really exponential. In the past, that cybersecurity and information security question was really something for the IT folks. And that has really permeated to all kinds of functions within the organization. And last but not least, to the board level. So now the C-suite and the owners and the investors ask very difficult questions, which might be not easy to answer for the companies, but they are good questions. Because at the end of the day, those people really understand now that everyone is a potential target. And, when I talk to my clients in the DC area on a regular basis, they say, come on, we are 10 people. Who is hacking a 10 people company? Well, they are not interested in you. They are not interested in your payroll information. What they are interested in is you being the conduit to the real target. So let's keep that in mind. It's really about the target might be not the target. I hope you understand that.
Yep. And so I'm showing here kind of the results of the results of that little poll there. Looks like what do we got? A third have their cybersecurity governance program in place.
Cool. This is fantastic because at the end of the day, a cybersecurity governance program is absolutely essential for every organization of any size. Literally, whether this is a 1 or 2 person company or whether this is a multi-billion-dollar company, every organization needs to have a cybersecurity governance program. Whether this is on the level that it can be certified and should be certified, that's a different story. But yes, it's absolutely essential to have this kind of program in place.
All right.
So I believe that at a webinar that is hosted by Quality Digest, there's obviously a great understanding of what is ISO. But I also think it's sometimes necessary to go a little bit back to roots. And in this case, really explaining what is ISO all about. So ISO is actually a word. It comes from the Greek word of isos, which means equal, like isobar. And that's obviously a little bit confusing because a lot of people say, just hold on, ISO stands for International Organization for Standardization, so it should be iOS. No, not really. When ISO was founded many years ago, they made that decision to call it really ISO as a word to really emphasize the idea of equal. Things like standards really should be equal across the world, regardless in what country. So ISO is actually an association, for lack of a better word, or federation of 160 countries with just one standards body represented per country. So for example, Germany is represented by the Deutsche Institut für Normung, DIN. Our friends in India are represented by BIS, the Bureau of Indian Standards, and the United States is represented by the American National Standards Institute, ANSI. And in many of those committees, those countries are represented. Not every country is represented on every committee, but they can if they wish. So it's really about the country to make that decision. And as already mentioned earlier, I'm sitting on SC27 and SC42, which are subcommittees responsible for some of the ISO standards in the domain, in particular in information security and AI management system standards. And from own personal experience, I can tell you that during the last meeting in Vienna, some 2 weeks ago, there were 250 people. And I guess I didn't count, but there were maybe 60 countries represented. So it's really up to the country to make sure that they are there and make their voices heard and contribute to the writing and publication of those documents or those standards. So here a little map of the world where there are member countries, member bodies. As one can see, most of the world is covered by member bodies or corresponding members. And here is a quick overview of global standards that are of utmost importance from a cybersecurity and information security perspective. First, there's ISO IEC 27001, last revised last year. And the official title of the document is Information Security, Cybersecurity, Privacy Protection with regard to information security management system requirements. And that last word, requirements, is absolutely crucial to recognize, because there are some ISO standards that are indeed requirement standards. And those standards use the word shall, as in you will do it, you must do it. But then there are also guidance documents which use the word should. good practice, recommendations, suggestions. These standards are very, very important, but at the same time, they are, well, guidances, right? And then there is ISO 27701, which is an extension to ISO 27001 and ISO 27002, which is a guidance standard, which is very much focusing on privacy protection. So we all have information about individuals, and the real question is, how are we going to protect that information about an individual? The privacy question is getting more and more prevalent. As we can see around the globe, there are pretty much weekly new laws enacted protecting the information of individuals. Then there is also ISO 22301, which is concerning business continuity. And as we have all learned in the last couple of years with COVID and other disruptions will happen. It's only a question of frequency, it's only a question of impact, but organizations must be prepared for the unthinkable. They must be prepared for the things they have not envisioned could happen. Who would think that a single ship in the Suez Canal can have a global impact on supply chain? These are the kind of questions we need to ask ourselves, individually as well as companies, as well as societies. How are we prepared for disruptions? This is being addressed in 22301. But then there are also, let's say, industry-specific standards, frameworks. For example, there is from the Cloud Security Alliance, what they call CSA Star, which is based on ISO 27001, but is really, really addressing the special concerns and issues that come from utilizing and leveraging cloud solutions. And therefore, that needs a special protection. And there's a general understanding, which is wrong, that CSA Star is only for cloud providers. In reality, every company who uses cloud solutions, and that means everyone, can be and should be assessed against CSA Star and certified to CSA Star. And it's important to know that CSA Star certification can only be done in connection with an underlying ISO 27001 certification. But then there is also something that is called TISAX. And TISAX stands for Trusted Information Security Assessment Exchange, and was initiated by the German car industry and is applicable to any and all suppliers to the German car manufacturers. And I really would like to emphasize any and all suppliers. And that is not just part suppliers. If you are providing an engineering service to VW, TISAX is applicable to you. If you are providing a cloud service, TISAX is applicable to you. If you are providing catering service for events where prototypes are being shown, TISAX is applicable to you. If you are a videographing studio making commercials, TISAX is applicable to you. So it's really all suppliers. A couple of certificates. I'm pretty sure that everyone on the webinar is very familiar with ISO 9001 and most likely ISO 14000 for quality, respectively environmental. But obviously, there are also other standards we are certifying organizations to, namely ISO 27001 and ISO 22301, which, as I said already earlier, is for business continuity. So a quick introduction to ISO 27001. What is it? What is an ISMS and what are the benefits? Well, an information security management system is a management system that is focused on the protection of information. And that information could be in the form of electronic data. It also could be verbal. It also could be on paper. The media on which the information is stored is not relevant. An ISMS is really about the protection of information regardless of the media it's stored on. So therefore, electronic media is part of it, but it's definitely a way wider range that organizations need and must consider. And that is the reason why I personally believe that an IT manager might be not necessarily the best person to manage an ISMS. Remember, my education background is computer science. My background is software development. However, I do believe that most IT managers are so narrow-minded in thinking about IT, laptops, SSDs, servers, switches, that they forget that there might be other things that might have an impact upon the protection of information security. For example, physical access control. For example, background checks of people, of hires. Employee awareness training. That is usually not the domain of IT. Yes, they are responsible for implementing password protocols, but the training of the employees to use strong passwords might be not coming from the IT folks, might come from HR department. So the benefits and purpose of ISO 27001 are pretty much the very same as for a 9000 quality management system. A certified organization has an external assessment, which in itself provides assurance to your customers that you are dead serious about information security. An externally assessed and certified ISMS provides trust and provides assurance to your clients that information is important to you and you will protect it. So what are some of the worrying trends in information security? Well, I think we all have heard about breaches and ransomware and these kind of things, right? Outages. And it's really about how do we prepare for that and how can we reduce the likelihood. And I use these words very carefully because it's not about the elimination. You cannot really prevent that your system is being hacked. What you can do is reduce the likelihood that it happens. And furthermore, what you also can do is, if it happens, you can reduce the impact. So these are two very important aspects and benefits of an ISMS. Repeatable processes will lead to a reduction of likelihood and reduction of impact in case an incident happens. And then on a regular basis, I hear something like, well, I'm the quality manager, I'm the quality director. I'm more concerned about supply chain availability and I have nothing to do with information security. Well, let's have a quick look. Where do you store your calibration data? Where do you store your measurement data? How do you submit the ASNs, the advanced shipping notifications? How do you receive the technical drawings from your customers? You all receive them electronically, right? You all receive them via some kind of means that need to be protected. And then there is the question, so what's the connection between quality and InfoSec? Well, from my perspective, the connection is actually pretty simple. It's all about the word quality. What is quality? And I will come back to that later in a couple of slides. But on the next slide, I really would like to share with you a couple of headlines we all have seen in the news. And I don't want to go into big details, great details here, but again, thinking about the connection between quality and InfoSec, think about software as a service, think about all the PPAPs, the product part approval process, or the FMEAs you have, and the SPCs. Where is this stored? It's stored on some kind of system, right? And whether this is, a FedEx system or UPS system that you're using to create labels and shipping labels to ship items to your customers, there's always some kind of connection with computer systems. Your PLCs on the shop floor, your SCADA systems, your CAD and CAM systems, all are somehow vulnerable and need to be protected. And I think this is something where a quality manager and quality director may play a very crucial role, because we have great experience in management systems, A, and B, in project management. So we are the kind of people that bring this multidisciplinary approach to the team, and we can help the organization to really drive that information security management system. As promised earlier, quality. From my own personal point of view, one of the best definitions of the word quality is fulfilling expressed and non-expressed expectations of the customer. Let that sink in for a sec. Fulfilling expressed and non-expressed expectations of the customer. So let's make an example. When I go to a hotel and I make a reservation for a hotel room, I say something like, I want to have a king-size room, a king-size bedroom, or 2 queens, whatever, right? From October 31st to November 1st. That's my specified expectation. Now let's assume I come to the hotel and they say, well, sir, your room is not available. However, I upgraded you to the suite. Okay, thank you so much. Or the other way around. I ordered a king-size room and they say, sorry, sir, there's only a room available with 2 queen beds. Hope that is okay. And I also give you a discount of $10, or I give you another 1,000 points. Oh, okay. At the end of the day, what I really need is a bed, a shower, and coffee. That's all I really need. I may have specified something else, but my real need is bed, shower, coffee. But now let's assume I come to my room and the bed is not made. The bed sheets are dirty. There's no towel in the shower. There's no hot water in the shower. Now I'm really furious, because the non-expressed expectation is, I'm coming to my room, the bed is made, the sheets are clean, there are towels in the shower, and there's hot water. And please don't tell me it does not happen. I personally have experienced that just 3 weeks ago on the trip to Germany, where there was indeed in a well-known hotel chain, no hot water, no towels in the shower. And then the receptionist told me, well, you are not the first person telling me there is no hot water. And then 2 other gentlemen at the breakfast told me, well, that's actually going on for 3 days. Now you cannot imagine how furious I was, how berserk I went, because that is just simply not acceptable. So we are customers, we are people more concerned. Are they more concerned about the non-expressed expectations or the expressed expectations, right? The expressed expectations, that's what we tell them. And if something happens there, yeah, we all understand that certain things just simply may happen. On the other hand, the non-expressed things, they are taken for granted. We are not even discussing that. That's a given, right? So now translate that to information. Your customer tells you, I want to have X amount of parts on this and this date. You agree upon the price. They even specify the quantity in a package, in a box. They even specify the content of information on the label and where the label needs to be put, right? They are not telling you, please don't share that information on the internet. Please make sure that your information is protected and nobody hacks your system. And by the way, don't share it with our competitors. They're not saying that. That's a non-expressed expectation. Yes, I understand there are NDAs, but generically speaking, there are this kind of things that are just simply taken for granted between two business partners. And if you violate that, you are in really big trouble. So therefore, you really need to make sure that information you have under your jurisdiction is properly protected. So what is a management system? I think that quality professionals on this call, so that means everyone knows it, sort of, kind of, but when we go to ISO website, there's a wonderful definition, and that says something along the line, a management system is the way in which an organization manages the interrelated part of its business in order to achieve its objectives. These objectives can relate to a number of different topics, including information security, cybersecurity, and privacy protection. So it's exactly the same as you have seen before in terms of product or service quality. You have seen it in terms of environmental performance. So it's exactly the same, just with a different focus. I see there is a question in the Q&A, and that says, in regards to InfoSec in clinical medical context, are there any major changes or emphasis to be considered? Yes. The patient doesn't say, please protect my blood result, although the patient really expects that, right? And yes, we really need to make sure that we are fulfilling legal obligations in this context as well, right? So HIPAA comes to mind. And again, personal experience tells me that occasionally, for whatever reason, patients are getting the test results of another person handed over, which happened to me. And that tells me that they are not very conscious about protecting not just the other patient's information, but also mine. You know, if I get the lab results of another person, I need to assume that other people are getting my results as well. So yes, in a medical and clinical context, there are obviously special information that need to be protected. And the challenges will be, in what case can you share what with whom? So let's make an example. Can parents get the health information of their children? Generically speaking, you would say yes, but I can see situations where that might be not the case. So it all depends on the context and the environment, but also the legal framework.
And well, if I can jump in
Yes.
real quick here. So people are asking questions. I appreciate that. Thank you. And Willie, you've got about 30 minutes to, or 25 minutes to get through your presentation here.
Thank you so much. I have no problem speaking faster like the people from the East Coast, if need be. So let's move on. So integration of a quality management system based on ISO 9001 and an ISO 27001 information security management system. They all have the same structure, from context of the organization over leadership to support operation improvement. The details are obviously a little bit different, but here's an interesting overview. Those green areas are exactly the same in 9K and 27K, word by word. Then the blue ones, they are a little bit specific to QMS and ISMS, but to the level where 9K may say a management representative for the quality management system needs to be appointed, and the ISMS says a representative for the ISMS needs to be appointed. The organization shall define their quality policy. The organization shall define their information security policy. So these are the differences between the two standards. But then obviously there are things that are very, very specific, in particular, information security risk assessment, as well as the treatment, respectively in the QMS, the requirements, design, and control of external processes, as well as production and service provision. However, in the interest of full disclosure, control of external processes is also covered in ISO 27001, but in the form of controls in the Annex A. So it's covered, but in a different structural way. And then improvement, you see there are little semantical differences, but generically speaking, still the same. Talking about the high-level structure, the areas 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, the gray areas in the future, that will change slightly because the high-level structure of management system has changed and will include in the future, that's applicable to all management system standards, will include the need for the organization to identify the impact of their management system to the environment. So I mentioned earlier ISO 27001 and ISO 27002. The one is the certifiable standard because it contains the shells, the requirements, while on the other hand, the 27002 is the guidance document that provides additional guidance to an organization or for an organization, how they might implement the standard. These are not audit criteria and really should be seen as the support document that helps organization in their endeavor. Next, I would like to talk about risk matrix, the assessment and the risk treatment, as well as the statement of applicability. Those 4 words or aspects are absolutely crucial to an information security management system. So risk matrix, I think everyone sort of kind of know what it is, but there is an ISO 27005 that has a couple of examples, and it's highly beneficial to have a look at that standard to get some inspiration and ideas how an organization could define the risk methodology. But in the interest of full disclosure, there's also a NIST standard that has a similar kind of approach and is also addressing risk. With regard to the fundamental 2 different approaches, there is a qualitative approach that only says, you know, minor, significant impact or serious, right? Or unlikely, very likely. While this is the most often used approach, I personally prefer, honestly, the quantitative approach, although it is more complicated, where the likelihood is expressed as in once per year or once every 8 hours or something, versus the impact is expressed in dollars, pounds, or euros, or whatever currency you're working in. Because at the end of the day, if you tell me, hey, the impact is, I don't know, unlikely and catastrophic, okay, what does this mean? On the other hand, if you say catastrophic means more than 1 million, okay, I sort of kind of click, right? So try to go for a quantitative approach if and when possible. The risk assessment then is subsequently done based upon that methodology you decide and define. And it's really about the risk identification, the risk analysis, and the risk evaluation. And those steps are clearly differentiated in the standard in ISO 27001 and further described in 27005. So please have a look at these if you are interested. Here's an example of a risk assessment using the qualitative approach. So we have physical access, we have people, and we have assets. And in most of those areas, I would like to emphasize there's no IT, right? Employee leaves laptop on plane or subway. IT has nothing to do with that. It's about user awareness. IT can come in terms of encryption, remote wiping, right? But in terms of the actual fact, laptop lost, IT has nothing to do. Or unauthorized access to the server room, physical access. Usually IT people are not standing in front of the server room. Usually that's more a question of physical security. And I use these examples really to emphasize that information security is not necessarily an IT question. I see there are more questions coming in. How cyber secure is the cloud today? Well, I'm biased. I have audited major cloud providers, and I think it's pretty darn secure. That said, I also do understand that there is a huge issue in terms of what happens if the solutions are not properly protected and secured. And I think there's the fundamental issue. It's not about the cloud provider, it's about the user not doing the right thing. If you think just because you have a VM, virtual machine, on some kind of cloud environment, you are secured because, well, it's in the cloud, right? And our friends from whatever cloud provider are taking care of it, you are wrong. Your server will be hacked. It's like not protecting it at all. If you're using the standard configuration on your firewalls in the cloud, you will be hacked. So it's a joint effort between the cloud provider and the cloud user. Cloud data centers, trust me, they are secured. You will not get into those unless you have been approved. So the physical security is absolutely fantastic, right? The logical, it's really up to the user and the consumers to really protect their information in the cloud. Next question. Do you think that the next ISO version will have ISMS integrated on its context, or will they stay separated and integrated once required for industry and application? Yes, we'll see actually more industry-specific or theme-specific ISO management system standards coming up. I'm privileged to work on the ISO 42001 standard, which is the upcoming future management system standard for AI management systems. So yes, that's another standard, very important. But yes, we will see more and more standards coming for specific domains. They will stay separated, and it's up to the organization to combine those as they see needed and fit. But the high-level structure makes the integration, relatively speaking, easy. Risk assessment looks like an FMEA. Yes, indeed. Looks exactly like an FMEA.
Willie,
the FMEA, though, yes, please.
Why don't we hold the rest of these questions until after your presentation?
Sure.
I'm worried that you're going to run out of time to get through all your material, and then we can just, if we don't get to everybody's questions, we can forward those on to SGS.
Yes, fantastic. Risk treatment, as described already in the risk treatment process, there are a couple of different outputs, and that is then displayed here in this slide, where then the control measures will then hopefully lead to a reduction in likelihood, respectively a reduction in severity and consequences. And though I must admit, usually the severity and consequences are not going to change, because whether a server is breached once a day or once per month, a server is breached, right? So the severity and consequences are usually staying the same. However, I can see that in some limited circumstances, that might be actually also changed. Statement of applicability. This is the most important concept within ISO 27001. It's about the organization needs to produce a statement of applicability that contains the necessary controls, justification for their inclusion and justification for their exclusion. And that is on a regular basis a big issue for organizations, because they only go into the Annex A and forget that they might have other controls, or they have controls and forget the Annex A controls. So it's very, very important to see the connection and create that statement of applicability. And here's an example of a statement of applicability that says, there is a particular control like screening, background verification on all candidates shall be done, implemented or not implemented, applicable, yes, no. If indeed that control is not applicable for whatever reason, the organization needs to have really good explanations. You cannot just say, oh, I exclude it because I don't want to do it. Nope. If it is applicable, it is applicable. Very simple and straightforward. A quick comparison between the well-known ISO 27001 as well as NIST 800 and CMMC. On on a regular basis, there is this question, why this or the other? Well, it really comes down to in what kind of industry are we and what do we really seek? NIST is not a certifiable standard. They use the word should versus shall. And in order to use a NIST standard as a certifiable thing, there needs to be requirements documents created, which the DoD is in charge of when it comes to CMMC, right? Compliance requirement 27 is driven by individual participants in certain markets, is a global thing, while NIST and CMMC are very focused on US. So at the end of the day, it comes down to similarities, yes, differences, yes. But at the end of the day, a 27001 system is a fantastic foundation, even for a CMMC implementation later on down the road. So what are the benefits of an certification by an accredited certification body like SGS? Well, at the end of the day, it's about de-risking your procurement. It's about helping to identify best practices and reducing paperwork. But an ISO 27001 management system is also a wonderful generic document, an umbrella, which covers other requirements like CMMC, like HIPAA, like PCI, like other ISO standards. So the ISO 27001 is the umbrella document, or some people say the foundation that helps to build upon other things. A couple of questions we hear on a regular basis. So information security seems too technical. As a management system. I'm not an expert IT person, and I have no idea about cybersecurity. Not necessary. Information security is not about cybersecurity. Information security management system is about a management system and project management. So what kind of resources do I need? Good people, trained people, knowledgeable people. And it all starts with seeking external training. By the way, SGS offers training classes with regard to ISO 27001 and other ISO standards. So feel free to go to our website and check us out. A couple of typical questions we see on a regular basis popping up. We have already an IT department. Why should I get involved? I think I answered that in the past in previous slides, because it's all about management system. It's about multidisciplinary approach. It's all about the IT folks are focused on the hardware and software. Management system folks are thinking broader and wider. Will ISO 27001 support our efforts with regard to compliance with government regulations? Absolutely yes. Because as every management system standard, it says somewhere the organization shall identify applicable rules and regulations and comply with them. Yes, there are some clients and some OEMs that require certification. If you want to do business with Microsoft, guess what? You will be certified to 27001. Does every company need? Nope, not every company needs a 27001 certification. Do they need ISO 27001 management system? Yes, everyone needs it, but not necessarily certification. What are other standards that are potentially applicable to me? Well, there's obviously PCI DSS if you're dealing with credit card information. There's obviously TISAX if you're dealing with the German car industry. Does ISO 27001 also make me compliant with data privacy regulations? Jein. Jein is German for ja and nein at the same time, yes and no at the same time. For pure privacy regulations, there's ISO 27701, which is an extension to 27001. So 27001 really builds the foundation upon then 27701 is being built upon, and that then helps you to be compliant with privacy regulations. Then what is 27701? I mentioned that already a couple of times. That's the extension with regard to privacy. Very, very interesting standard to look at. A little bit more about the standard. It actually includes a mapping to GDPR as well as to other ISO standards. And the benefits of 27701 would be obviously the compliance with requirements to the 27001, as well as working with regard to processing PII, personally identifiable information. So the structure of the standard is a little bit unusual because it has this structure, but I can also tell you that going forward, 27701 will be following the high-level structure of other management system standards when it's getting updated in due course. Due to time, I'm jumping a little bit fast. So I had the privilege to talk on January 27th this year, which is the International ISO 27001 Day. And I was asked by the committee to talk about the ugly. And I shared with them, unfortunately, there are a lot of box solutions. Consultants and assessors are not worth their money, sheer incompetence, and getting certified as one method to get points in government bidding projects. While I understand it from a business perspective, it's not good business process to just get certified for the purpose of getting points. And yes, some organizations have this thing. Certification is seen as the ultimate goal, but not really interested in improving the management system. And yes, I did have calls where the caller asked me, so are you selling ISO certifications and how much is it? And no, we are not selling ISO certifications. We are selling the assessment of your management system, and it fulfills the requirements of the standard. Then and only then we issue a certificate. I've seen data centers that are using consumer-grade UPSs. I've seen furnaces for industrial plants next to 2 server racks. I've seen switches that are still on with dozens of Cat5 cables cut. I've seen air-conditioned systems literally hanging on top of server racks with a discharge hose hanging from the above the rack, and I've seen data centers that look like that. My home data center looks a little bit better than that. And I had access to the data center in which servers of presidential servers were hosted. In the interest of full disclosure, that was not in the US, that was in a foreign country. So what does a typical 27000 or 27701 certification process look like? Well, it's the usual curve, right? It's the application, the competence and skilling of people that are essential, the gap assessment, the stage 1 and stage 2, and finally the ongoing improvement and certification activities. So where are we going from here? The standard has changed last year, so it will be not changed for the next couple of years. That said, there might be an impact because of the high-level structure changes, but we would be not surprised to see if going forward ISO 27001 will be as promising, as prevalent, as wide used as we know from ISO 9000. We see more and more national and industry-specific frameworks like TISAX, but we also see progression towards continuous and continual assessments with computer systems continuously monitoring and potentially altering, if necessary, procedures for compliance. We will see AI solutions helping in both the maintenance as well as the assessments of management systems. And that brings me to the conclusion. 27001 is applicable to small and large companies. While certainly some organizations are struggling, the overwhelming majority of organizations have no real problems in implementing and maintaining the ISMS. And certification by a reputable organization like SGS that is well known and accredited will provide assurance to clients looking for it. I'm a firm believer of homework. So next week, you should review the ISO 27001. That means this week you will need to buy it. Same for 27002. You should research training classes by SGS. And within the next 3 months of this presentation, you should attend an online auditor's class and book your pre-assessment. And then hopefully within 6 months or so, you can book your stage 2 assessment. Now we come to the Q&A.
Perfect. And I'm going to throw another, just a generic poll question up here for those of you who didn't have a chance to maybe answer the first one. Remember, you need to answer a poll question if you want your certificate of attendance. You were just mentioning the next version of ISO, so we got a question here on that. Do you think that the next ISO version will have ISMS integrated, or did you already, or maybe you already answered that one, didn't you?
Yes, I answered it already. No, it will not
Okay.
integrate it. Will stay separated. But what
Okay.
I can see easily is that there might be references saying, in order to fulfill a quality management system, you will also need to have something with regard to cybersecurity,
Okay.
information security.
How do you evaluate the status on the management of risks to put it in a dashboard as a metric? For instance, do you say that the status is on track when the responses provided to each risk are well managed and responded to?
Yes. So I would first ask, can I see the risk register? Once I see the risk register, then my question would be obviously, what is the threshold for accepting risk? And I really would like to emphasize, risk is defined in the ISO world as the degree of uncertainty. So there's a certain risk that I'm winning the lottery tonight. Is this a positive thing or a negative thing? It's degree of uncertainty, right? So first, risk register that should contain positive as well as negative risks. Then I would ask for the threshold of acceptance. And if then there are risks that are above the threshold that need to be lowered, then I would ask for the project plan to get those reduced to an acceptable level. I trust this answers the question.
This is an interesting question, Ranjadeep. Is it a requirement to have IT and IT educational background for starting the journey as an auditor for cybersecurity?
So when it comes to being an auditor for certification bodies like SGS, then that requirement would be stipulated in ISO 27006, just another standard that tells us how to do things. And yes, indeed, there is a requirement for educational background in IT. So yes, information security auditors need to have a background in information technology.
And we have another question. You may have kind of addressed this one earlier. How will medical device manufacturers be affected? Because that's pretty broad. This is both for medical device manufacturers. You got both hardware and the hardware built into devices as well as software that might run the devices as well, right?
And there's a third component. So yes, there is the product, whether this is tangible or intangible, whether this is the pacemaker in itself, or whether it's the chip in the pacemaker that has some kind of software, plus all the services around that, from the medical office to the physician to the hospital, even to the device manufacturer. So there's an entire ecosystem that needs to be protected. But there's also the component of the information the manufacturer has itself. So for example, the technical specifications, the drawings, the bill of material, the SBOM, the software bill of material. If that is being leaked, that could have devastating effects on the safety and security of the product. So a medical device manufacturer really needs to see it not just from a device perspective and the ecosystem around the device, but also how they protect the information they have, let alone how much information they share with their suppliers.
And another one just came in. What kind of controls should be in place? What kind of controls should be in place as part of a QMS for cybersecurity?
My suggestion is to have a very close look at the ISO 27001 and really try to understand it in terms of customer requirements. What are the risks? What are the assets? What are the valuable things we have under our control? that we need to protect, whether this is patient data, whether this is bill of material, whether this is pricing, whether this is supplier lists. And that then will help us to understand what kind of risks we may have and how we, so if that risk then materializes, what kind of impact that could have. And then we have ways to reduce that risk and reduce the likelihood. And then we have an effective ISMS. So have a quick look at 27001 and its approach, and you will get a lot of inspiration.
And I think maybe to add on to that, let's make this the last question here. Just something that was occurring to me. What is, in your experience out there in the field, what is the low-hanging fruit? What is the one thing that you're seeing in almost every company that, you know, this is easy, guys, you should be doing this at least?
Inventory of assets. Just ask how many laptops do we actually have, and then what revision level is the OS? How many printers do we have that are connected to the network? How many different OS versions do we have? And by the way, why do we have so many? How many iPads, iPhones, cell phones, blah, 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 do we have that are connected to our Exchange server? Companies on a regular basis don't have an inventory, an accurate inventory of their assets. And if you don't know it, you can't manage.
You can't manage it, right? Right. Okay. Well, thanks, Willie. That was an informative and I should say very timely, very timely presentation today. Appreciate it. Thanks, that.
No, thank you very much for hosting, and I hope the audience enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you have any questions, here's my email address. And by the way, the QR code next to my picture is a direct link to my LinkedIn profile. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions about SGS, there's another QR code on the bottom. Please scan that with your smartphone and go to our website for further information. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks, you too. And you all will be getting, all of you who registered, will be getting an email in about 24 hours that will have a link to a recording of the webinar so you can watch it again or share it with your friends. So keep your eyes open for that. So from all of us here at Quality Digest and SGS, thanks for joining, and we will see you at the next webinar. So long.